I'd like to introduce Jess, Kalisiak, and a quick bio is the following. They obtained her MSc in 2018 in tropical marine biology, and she's now a researcher in Cambodia, overseeing multiple marine projects from growth dynamics of the elusive Neptune's cup sponge to monitoring and mapping of the seagrass meadows. Her research interests include microplastics, trophic interactions, and conservation biology. In a long-term study, she explores the anthropogenic effects resulting from the fishing industry and island development and the resiliency of seahorse populations in the Koh Sdach Archipelago. So, Jess, I'll hand over the microphone to you.
Hi, thank you very much. Thanks for having me at the conference. It's been wonderful the past couple of days learning so much about cygnathids as I'm very new to this field. There is a bit of background noise from boats, so I'm going to ask Jing, could you play the video for me, please?
Hi everyone, my name is Jess. I'm the marine biologist at Koh Sdach Divers, and I'm going to present our research on monitoring seahorse populations in the Koh Sdach Archipelago on the southeast coast of Cambodia. Just a very brief history about who Koh Sdach Divers are and what we do. Primarily, we are a paddy dive centre located in a Cambodian archipelago of 12 islands, only one of which has a population, and that is Koh Sdach. Not just a dive centre, we are supported by Fauna and Flora International and Cambodia's Fisheries Administration to collect data which will aid in protecting the marine environment around the Koh Sdach Archipelago, with our data contributing towards the implementation of a marine fisheries.
How's this?
Koh Sdach, which is our island, Koh Sdach at the very south, and to the east we have the mainland. Following the Icy Horse Toolkit, we conduct 60-minute surveys at a variety of habitats, usually in sandy bottom or seagrass meadows. We measure distance by GPS coordinates, and if we're lucky enough to encounter a seahorse, we note holdfast, sex, torso and tail length, and we photograph to confirm species. So onto our general findings, seasonal sighting frequency. So looking at sighting frequency by month, January has the highest sightings of seahorses with 32 individuals in 35 dives, resulting in a 0.91 sighting frequency per dive. March and February followed respectively, with a 0.8 and 0.67 mean seahorse sighting per dive. Despite 9 dives taking place in July from 2014 to the current, only one seahorse has ever been sighted in this month, with the lowest sighting frequency of 0.1. There is a distinct seasonality in Cambodia, with a dry, calm season from November to April, and the wet season from May to October. This is clear from the reduced survey efforts in the rainy months, as conditions are often dangerous and we simply cannot conduct in-water surveys. Looking at the data by season, there was not a statistically significant difference. Torso length between sex. Just to mention here that 79% of sightings comprise of Hippocampus cruda, and there have been 5 sightings of each Hippocampus monachi, Hippocampus tromaculatus, and Hippocampus spinosomus. 73% of individuals cited were female and 27% male. The male seahorses had a significantly longer torso length, with 48.65 millimeters compared to 28.35 millimeters for the females. Size between site was also tested for significance, with no differences found between torso length and location. Population densities. So as you can see by looking at the figure, Koh Sdach has the highest sighting frequency, with 0.35 individuals per 100 meters squared. As the only populated island in the archipelago with no sewage treatment or waste management, this is interesting. There was a statistically significant difference in individuals per area, and a Tiki-Kramer post-hoc test revealed the significance was between the mainland site and Koh Sdach, the mainland site and Koh Chan, and the mainland site and Koh Tong. Through personal observation only, we have identified the mainland as having higher fishing intensities than all other sites. A next step would be to attempt to quantify this, but there's often active monofilament nets present and evidence of bottom trawling when conducting surveys. Populations of seahorse is second highest at this site and remains pretty stable. Seahorses were predominantly seen with no holdfast here, and the highest holdfast which they choose was algae, which is 25%, and organic matter, including sticks and leaves, which was also 25%, and this was followed by fishing gear at 12.5%. These were the only 4 holdfasts utilised at the mainland site. Throughout all other sites, these 4 remain highest, but there's also cnidaria, tube-worm casings, sponges, starfish, and other things which weren't present at all at the mainland, most probably due to a result of bottom trawling. So Koh Sdach is an island which we've been surveying since 2014, and in 2018, intense construction began. Sighting frequency per dive has decreased from a mean sighting of 1 seahorse per dive in 2014 to 0.25 in 2021, with 3 consecutive years of 0 sightings. Although mean densities of seahorses appeared to follow a downward trend, these changes were not significant when comparing pre-construction to current construction due to sample size. Koh Sdach is the largest seagrass meadow, we believe, in the archipelago, and one which we regularly monitor. Here, sighting frequency per dive appears to have increased despite a decline in benthic cover of seagrass from 14.3% in 2018 to 2.1% in 2021. There's been a total phase shift from the seagrass to a now macroalgal dominated habitat, with an increase in this algae from 4.2% in 2018 and 10.8% in 2021. This is reflected in holdfast preference of seahorses here, with the macroalgae accounting for 41% and seagrass as well as no holdfasts, both equally holding a 23% preference. However, there was no statistically significant difference in the seahorse populations per year at this site. Although our results showed seahorses were not significantly altered by the decline in seagrass cover, many studies have shown that seagrass meadows support significantly greater densities of signated species compared with macroalgal dominated areas, and some species actively avoid macroalgal beds because of a lack of robust structure to serve as suitable holdfasts. A recent study suggested that hippocampus cuda prefer habitats with greater complexities, and individuals encountered on bare substrate may be temporarily exploiting open habitats, may be in transit between preferred complex microhabitats, or they may have been displaced from their home ranges because of strong currents. The meadows at Koh Sdach consist of short Halophila ovalis, only between 2 and 3 centimeters in height. We've also got the blade-like Cymodocea sterulata, which may be not chosen because either they're unstable for the larger individuals, or perhaps because they're difficult to grasp with the seahorse's prehensile tail. Nevertheless, our data suggests that macroalgal beds at Koh Sdach are a suitable habitat, possibly because of the increased epifauna as well as areas to hide from predators. Studies have shown that seahorses are able to adapt when their preferred habitat is in decline. So it is possible that although seagrass habitats have begun to disappear at Koh Sdach, seahorses could be shifting to newly available macroalgal habitats, or they could be choosing between habitat types. Seahorse populations at Koh Sdach seem less vulnerable to changes in the environment, which could be due to a more generalistic behavior in terms of activity, foraging strategy, and preferred microhabitat. As the seahorses in the study utilize seagrass and macroalgae for refuge, camouflage, and prey capture, they also occur in sandy bottoms, so they're not exclusively reliant on vegetation. This makes its long-term response to habitat change difficult to predict. Rapid coastal development has resulted in significant declines in the availability of habitats, which has also been associated with parallel declines in the abundance of many marine species. For example, in Malaysia, Hippocampus cuda declined due to the construction of an extensive port, destroying large tracts of seagrass meadow. Due to the decline in seahorse sightings at Koh Sdach since construction began in 2018, our data may suggest the sensitivity to eutrophication and other changes in water quality and associated visibility. It's been long known that polluted habitats can cause biological stress and they can reduce abundance of cygnathrids. Low light levels are also known to significantly reduce prey capture, and particularly for seahorses with sit and wait ambush feeding strategies. Reduced food intake or even changes in food availability could affect both adult and juvenile survival, with indirect effects on brood size and quality through changes in adult condition. Furthermore, in experimental conditions, reduced visibility has led to behavioural changes in some cygnathrids, with less time assessing potential mates, and some no longer preferentially mating with larger females. We do, however, have opposing data from Koh Sdach. As I mentioned before, there was no sewage treatment or waste management on the island. However, this site had the highest densities of seahorse. This may suggest that the populations are tolerant towards suboptimal water quality and busy boat traffic. This is in accordance with some species of pipefish, which are able to tolerate very low dissolved oxygen concentrations below levels lethal to most commercially important species. And it was even found that for the broad-nosed pipefish, although hypoxic conditions negatively affected embryonic growth, they did not affect embryonic survival. The greatest continued limitation of our project is the difficulty in obtaining uniformly distributed data sets. Through space and time, only few surveys have been conducted at Koh Sdach, and insightful data on the variation remains limited. Patchy seagrass is present at Koh Sdach, but this fluctuates throughout the year, and this is the preferred holdfast at the site for the seahorses. Perhaps seahorses are only seen at Koh Sdach for certain months of the year, and then they move habitat, or perhaps populations in the seagrass meadow, like at Koh Sdach, they could shift to a new habitat type. These questions will be used for further surveys. Fishing pressures are known to alter the seahorse habitat due to destructive methods, which could reduce the availability of natural holdfasts. At our mainland site, 37.5% of sightings, the seahorse had no holdfast, and in some cases, this could be because the benthic structure is so bare after bottom trawling. However, the fishing activities have also led to the introduction of many artificial holdfasts and habitat structures, from lines, the lost traps, to fishing detritus. We found that Hippocampus cuda use a variety of holdfasts, both natural and artificial. At all 5 main sites, seahorses have been utilising ghost gear as holdfast, with an average preference of 15%. It's been found in Australia that seahorses utilise artificial nets and even have a preference for those over their natural habitat. Often these habitats are selected because they're simply available in a higher abundance, or they may offer a greater or more readily available food source. Epibiotic growth accumulates on these lost or discarded fishing nets, which may provide a source of mobile epifaunal prey for the seahorses. A possible reason why no seahorses have ever been sighted on active nets could be then due to a lack of epibiotic growth, as it takes a relatively large amount of time for them to recruit onto newly installed nets. Our results support previous research showing the potential of artificial habitats, such as fishing gear, nets, rope, as a viable tool in conservation. The observation that some seahorses will choose fishing gear while in the presence of seagrass or algal habitat that may be in decline indicate these nets could potentially be used to support populations of the natural habitat when it is declining, or becoming patchier, or therefore less viable for some species. As previously mentioned, the greatest continued limitation of the project is the difficulty in obtaining a uniformly distributed data set each month or even each year. However, I think we can show that recreational divers can play a part in conservation, as this data that we have collected will be used in the future by the Ministry of Fisheries to guide the marine protected area and perhaps lead to novel seahorse conservation techniques in Cambodia. Thank you for listening.
Well, thanks very much, Jess, and good on you for hanging in there and getting it done. And it'd be nice if there was a recording of this later on we could review, since it was a little bit disrupted at the beginning. But we better move on, if that's okay.